Hello, hi, this is Jeff. This is WebVee Guy Conversation. Today we're talking with Anthony DiMieri, the creator, director, writer of Bros, the series. Welcome, Anthony. It's good to meet you.
Great to be here.
Yeah.
Great to meet you as well.
All right. Well, I hope you're having a really pleasant Sunday. Let's talk a little bit, if we can, to start about your background, where you're from, where you grew up.
Sure. I was born in Brooklyn. I'm 25 years old, so I was born in Brooklyn in '87. Shortly thereafter, a couple weeks old, I moved to upstate to Middletown, New York, which is in Orange County. So I kind of had a more suburban upbringing. And although I'd spent a lot of summers in the city, I had a lot of family. I have a very immigrant style, working class, extended Italian American family. So we'd have big, I don't know, every baptism or christening or Thanksgiving or Christmas, there was always that growing up. So I spent a lot of time in the city, though I really hated it for all sorts of reasons, mostly because we were hanging out in the Bronx and in certain areas, New York City in the summer. I saw somebody posted on Twitter, they're like, this city is lovely, it's just in the summer. It's not the most pleasant smelling city. There's all sorts of things. So I was very comfortable with suburban life until I got to college. And then when I was 17, I came back. And so I've been here for about 8 years since then.
All right. Where'd you go to college? Went to college in the city.
My freshman year, I was an NYU Film School reject several times over at this point. But my freshman year, the only college I got into, because I didn't apply to any other college, it was the College of Mount St. Vincent. And I had a guidance counselor that's like, look, you're not an idiot. Do you want to go to college? He's like, I'll call them up. And so he basically got me, skipped ahead, and I went in for an interview, and they gave me a scholarship. So I was there for a year, thinking I was going to go to NYU Film again, didn't get in, and ended up going to Fordham, where I was going to drop film and just do politics, which is this whole other background I have. Which was the case pretty much up until I was about to graduate, just 4.5 years ago. And I always did film projects growing up. I always did stuff with my friends, and I kind of was making YouTube videos before there was a YouTube. And then when I was about to graduate college, I made this just simple short film that I kind of made without a script. And my teacher was just like, oh my God, this is fantastic. It really blew me away. I thought, I laughed. I was nervously laughing as we were showing it, because there's a scene where a friend of mine, my friend Jackie's crying in a shower. We kind of went ultra melodramatic with it in some respect. And it was a silent film. And I don't know, it just got such a response. And I was like, okay, we did that in 24 hours or 48 hours? It's it kind of snapped me back into okay, I really do love doing this stuff. Maybe I should do it anyway. I should, and I had planned to be an academic and do history or political science in grad school, and that was sort of a turning point where I decided I want to do film again, whatever it was going to take. So I graduated college. My first job out of college, I worked as a doorman on the Upper East Side because I don't know, a lot of my friends had internships and whatnot, and I basically, my background and where I picked up production, I worked for a news organization, Democracy Now!, which is sort of a left-wing, independent, nonprofit news. And I was there, and I didn't get a job offer, so I worked as a doorman and did freelance film editing on my laptop for a while. And then I just got totally lucky, and a friend called me who used to work at Democracy Now! And got me a job in advertising. So I actually was able to make a ton of really great professional people working in broadcast quality territory. I was in advertising up until we released Bros. So I left advertising from August 2009 till April, and then it just the success of Bros just was too much that I couldn't focus at work. I even told my boss, I'm like, this is just not sustainable. I have to, I'm going to have to take time off, and I've still been taking time off and we'll see what happens if the series is successful. and it's something I can do as a full-time job, that'd be spectacular. If not, I'm sort of on the fence of like, do I email all my old bosses at this point and try to get back into advertising, because
Sign up for
we haven't released the second episode, and who knows what's going to happen.
yeah, sign up for LinkedIn again just to make sure.
Yeah, exactly. Like, just, hey guys, I know I left to go do this really awesome thing, but yeah, I still know Final Cut, by the way. So
Now,
who knows?
you've taken off the last 6 months to devote yourself to this show, to Bros.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Bros then, because it's obviously very important to you. The connection to girls and the parody of girls is been talked about a lot, I think, since the first episode came out.
Well, yeah, I mean, so the story is, in 2010, in the spring of 2010, I just sat down one night. My roommate now, actually, was a friend of mine at the time, was telling me how he had all these like directing opportunities come up. He's 5 years older than me, so he had like won a film contest, and all these opportunities were opening up to him. And I realized I like hadn't done anything. I had some screenplays that I touched here and there. I just hadn't done anything for a while. So I sat down one night until like 5 in the morning in 2010 and wrote the first half of what was a pilot for a show about 24-year-olds in New York City. There's about 3 guys and a girl. It was called Meeting People, which was like a euphemism some friends and I would use basically for meeting girls. It was just like, oh yeah, you should go to this, there's this event going on, there's this party. It might be a great place to meet new people. You know, we'd put things in terms of like networking or whatever lingo people use. And so there was going to be, I was writing this series based on that, and I spent basically 3 years, two and a half years collecting data and stories and whatnot, and building this universe for this show. And then in 2012, somebody's like, "Oh yeah, you really should watch the show Girls. Like, you remind me of one of the characters, which was either Charlie or Ray. I'm not sure." But so I watched Girls, and I was like, "Wow, this is very close to what I was writing. This is extremely close." And you know, I blew through the whole first season in a long weekend, or actually, I was at work. It was slow work days. These were slow work days. I wasn't avoiding work. Just had some downtime. But yeah, I went through the whole season in, I think, less than 3 days, and it was just very clear, like, wow, this means I have to revamp my sitcom project, because no one's going to want to do a sitcom about 24-year-olds in New York City anymore, because this has it. And so I ended up rewriting that so everybody's almost 30, and they have this big fear about they're all going to turn 30 and life is over, and they've wasted their time in New York and whatnot, and so they all start acting like 19-year-olds. That's how I adapt that. And I thought that I would make this series called Bros, kind of in the spirit of the way The Lonely Island as a comedy team did this thing called The Boo, which was a spoof on the OC back in 2004 or 2000, like almost 10 years ago. And it was a web series they did before there was a YouTube. And it was for Channel 101 in LA. And I used to watch, I was in high school, and I used to watch this. I thought it was hilarious. And I used to watch The Lonely Island all the time before, you know, a year and a half before SNL picked them up. I just thought they were the greatest thing on the internet. And so in the spirit of that, I thought, okay, well, I can't finance a TV show, but I can do a web series parody. And Bros is just such a easy, and New York City, like if you're out on a Friday or Saturday night, in certain neighborhoods, you can't walk like outside your door without seeing a bunch of drunk bros walking by. So in my I live on the Lower East Side, so this is one of them. And it just seemed like the thing to do. And it was the date of the second season of Girls that really pushed me, like, okay, this just has to be out January 13th. We have to get it done, even though it was 3 weeks late. But you know, it was like I sat down, I wrote a trailer script, and I wrote an episode script. It was supposed to be a 5-minute episode. That's the other thing. I wrote a very simple script, and with the first episode, it was almost entirely improv. there were some lines that, I mean, I would guide the improv, and I actually listened to, ironically, a Judd Apatow interview where he like explains how he directs. It's just he'll, like throw out a phrase or a word, keep this one and drop that one and go there. So it was sort of like that. Like it's like, you're gonna go. This guy has a novel from Proust, and you're gonna sit down and you're gonna say that she has to read the Da Vinci Code. That's kind of the direction I would give, and then thankfully I did the casting based on improv strength. So everybody in the casting sessions, everybody was just given situations and to respond to. They weren't really given a script or lines. Like they had it, but it was more important to see how they're drunkenly trash talking while like shoveling pizza into their mouth or.
Yeah, I was going to ask about the subway scene when they were going home. And
okay, yeah.
The whole Michelangelo thing, which was perfect because he absolutely looked like Michelangelo.
There's a lot more to that. We actually ran the camera the entire time we were in the subway. Because that's maybe 2 minutes for the credit sequence at best. Yeah. And, I think there's probably 10 minutes of footage of just letting them riff. And there were certain things I would jump in and be like, okay, go back to the Ninja Turtles thing, or something like that. It's just sort of like catching them when they're at their best, and then sort of like guiding things there, but not being too hands-on. And I mean, I'm a big Curb Your Enthusiasm fan, and Christopher Guest. I think all of his films sort of run the same way, where it's more about creating situations and just having talented actors respond to them with, you have to hit this mark, this mark, and this mark, and that, that would be your scene. I prefer that. This episode 2 is a little bit different, and it's an experiment. We'll see what happens.
Well, let's talk about the cast a little bit. And Peter Horahan, he plays Tyler.
Yes.
Who plays Michael?
Michael is John Michael Hasty.
John Michael Hasty, okay. And Matthew Jacques plays?
He's Drew. He's the one in the purple sequins.
Yes. And that means Steve White is John.
Steve White is John.
Okay. Did you know these guys? Were they friends of yours? How did they get involved with the show?
We did. I put up. I've directed a couple things. I did a serious casting once before Bros. Back in 2010, I did this. It was like a Funny or Die video about the Four Loko craze that was going on at the time, and but I basically helped my roommate cast. He's a director as well, so I've helped him and been in casting sessions with him. So I sort of like learned how he does it, and so he does very improv heavy casting sessions, which I guess now I've been acting a bunch, and I realize how intimidating that is for actors to come in and just you don't have any lines. We want to let's just talk about this text message. You got a text message that says, "Hey, sexy." How do you respond? And so for the initial casting session in December, I hadn't met any of those guys. We kind of brought them in. A couple of them I brought in based on on Actors Access. You can send a little message as you're applying to audition for something. And one of them, John Hasty. I shouldn't really out them. I should keep this. All right. Well, John Hasty sent me one that was like, "Bro, you gotta let me read for this. I'm always texting girls for my friends because my words are smoother than silk," or like, I don't know. It was like the most absurd.
Some totally bro text. Huh?
Yeah, exactly. It was like, oh my God. Like, okay, all right, come on in. And the other one, and the casting ad I put up was pretty mean in terms of like how it described the characters. It was just like, these are fratty, douchey assholes. They hit on anything that breathes. They drink light beer. They watch Family Guy. They're bigots. Like they're terrible. Whatever. And then Matthew Jacques messages, and he's like, "Bro, you've actually just described my fucking life. You gotta let me read for this." And I was like, okay, all right, let's have him come in. And then Pete Horahan, his message was just, "I was in a frat." He just sent that, just like, "Oh, hey, I think I'd be good for this. I was in a frat." I was like, all right, let's bring him in. And to be an acting major at a big state university in a frat is a pretty unique thing. And I think that's why Pete has, for this particular character, he's like extremely, I think he said this is one of maybe the favorite, if not one of his favorite roles he's ever done, because he has so much material to draw from, because he spent 4 years in a Syracuse, SUNY Syracuse.
Well, did you create the characters, or how much input did they have into the creation of their individual characters? Did you?
In the initial casting breakdown, it was very. I mean, because the initial intent was that this would just be a sketchy-like thing. That would just be kind of, almost like caricatures, like they're sort of one-dimensional. You don't really have like. It was going, and the thing was, it was going to be 5-minute episodes. That was the idea, that we would just have very short 5-minute episodes, like very to the point, couple jokes, and then we're out. So the characters were, the descriptions were, okay, one character is supposed to be sort of a bully, who's really just looking for love, which is where Tyler, or Pete's character, comes in. Mike, who's the main character, was sort of like the parody of Lena Dunham's Hannah Horvath, and then, it's a guy cut off from his parents, he has to go do his thing. But I thought he would be like the, and I've run into this type way too many times, but it's like the almost like a serial girlfriender, if you can say that, like somebody who just jumps relationship. It's a guy who's very insecure, and he's sort of like, he jumps relationship. And so he's always got a girlfriend, though he's always screwing up and sabotaging the relationship, right? And there is some depth to that if you really want to get into it. But the idea, for the first shoot was just like, okay, we're doing, a couple scenes with the girlfriend, and they're all going to be pretty comical. We didn't get into the detail of like why a guy is driven to that sort of behavior. But yeah, so there'd be this guy who could, he's pretty much always had attention from the girls. He's always had a girlfriend. But he's kind of, he'll either cheat on her or he'll screw it up in some way. He's just not a good boyfriend at that. He's just like, he's bad at it, even though he's always in a relationship. So that was going to be Mike. The character John came about as being like the super. On paper, it actually was a little bit. I'm glad. I think Steve actually helped this. We were like talking to him. We sort of found a way to make this work, because on paper it was just that. There'd be one bro who was extremely homophobic, who was just like over the top, and who's actually just in the closet, right? That would be, and then there are people I met in college, and I'm sure, there's who was it, Senator Larry Craig, like this thing happens. So there'd be somebody who was that character, and then the character Drew would just be sort of like this alpha male, always like, just a complete womanizer, but sort of terrible, and the real depth of that comes about. That's where, as the series has got extended, and it sort of came into why, if you're a womanizer, where does that come from? And so if it pans out as a series, I want to like go into all of those questions, but just that he would be like the leader, coming up with different schemes. Hey, we're gonna go pick up girls in a library today. These are the things you need to do. Have this book in your hands, whatever it is, and
so you'll explore their personalities as you develop the series and the series unfolds, at least as
That's the idea. I mean, after the success of the first episode, it really my attention went into how to adapt this to be, because of certain attention we got and certain doors that still may be possible to open. Just how do we adapt this to be network worthy? Whereas I was saying I had this other sitcom. I always thought Bros would just be like this little web series. And if anybody wanted to talk about a real sitcom, I have this other project. Don't worry, I've got a 30-minute sitcom. It's just sitting on a shelf somewhere. But Bros is a web.
Now, how did you wind up? You said your intent was to do little bite-sized 5-minute episodes. Get in, get out quickly. So the first one was really closer to about 12 minutes, the first episode.
Yeah, and there was a 15-minute cut before that. It was just, there was so much material. I mean, these guys, and I think that's really the strength, like you described the subway scene. That's not in the script. That's not anywhere. It's just like, we had to ride, or maybe there would have. I think there's just one line in the script that, like, oh, while they're on the subway, like, I hope you guys really enjoyed that, or something. It's just something I had written as just like the character Drew angry at everybody else for screwing things up. It was something very simple, and we just ran the camera, and these guys all just kind of taken on their character, and they were able to run with it. And yeah, there's 10 minutes of footage for that. The Tyler Barside chats came out of, there was one line. I hope I can drop it. Well, it was F Obama, right? That was the line in the script, which was just like supposed to be some drunk bro at a bar just trying to get the guy next to him to agree with him, and he would just start talking shit about Barack Obama, which in New York City is a very common occurrence in a certain happy hour spot or whatnot. And that was the line in the script. And when we were shooting, we sort of just gave him, we gave him room to have a conversation, then go into that line and then see where things went. And Pete was just riffing for, I think, it was like maybe 11 minutes of footage of him just going on about these stories. I was taking a cab to Brooklyn because, you set up the whole scene for one line. You spend an hour, or, you're bringing in all this gear, you're setting up everything, all the lights and everything for what is in the script, just one line or two lines. And it doesn't make sense, at least for that purpose and for what we were doing in the beginning. So we just got as much material as possible. So the Barside chats were never supposed to be anything. It's just we had so much great footage of Pete just talking this guy's ear off at a bar that it was just like, okay, let's just repurpose these. How are we gonna use them? There's more stuff like that too. That I haven't even taken the time to go through and dig. But really, yeah. So we would shoot for one or two lines, and we'd end up with 5 or 6 minutes of great footage and great lines. So when you patch it all together, we had a 15-minute episode. We probably could have stretched it further. And the thing is, like, all right, how much time are you going to spend in the apartment listening to these guys rip on their friend for dressing in purple sequins, right? Then you're playing with the audience and how long. It's going to be funny. The lines are funny. They're always funny. There's so many different combinations. That's why that episode is so hard to edit. Because you have a response and an insult, and you're just sort of we're writing it in the edit based on how good
every line was a line.
Yeah, like I watched it again the other day. He's like, what you're doing right now is just too purple for my own good. Like that was that. I wish I could write that. I wish I had written that. But there was so much, and we just sort of got him in the zone and got him flowing, where the really great stuff came out. And I think, I'd like to, if we had the freedom to shoot the way we shot the first episode, I think I would always shoot like that. The thing is, when we get into the second episode, it's sort of our circumstances are a little bit different. But in the first episode, because we were going in to shoot only 5 minutes, and we spent 4 days, 5 minutes and then the trailer, so maybe it was 8 minutes of footage total. And we had 4 days to work on that. Even the scene with the parents, with the character Mike and his parents, that was in the script. Yeah, when he's cut off, and that was like our direct parody of Girls. So in that scene, I had written maybe 3 lines, but we had half a day to shoot. So there's plenty more. I had that scene. I had a 2.5-minute version of the scene, which I loved, but everybody was like, okay, nobody's gonna watch it. No, everybody was afraid nobody was gonna watch a 12-minute episode just because you're in this mentality of what people on the web, what their attention spans are. People think you have to be 3 minutes or less, or 5 seconds or something. Like nobody's gonna watch a video that's longer. And now our second episode is twice the length, so we'll see if anybody watches it. But it was a fear. And
the Amazon Prime, I mean, there's a move, depending upon what platform you're on, onto Hulu, that you see the 22 to 30-minute episodes on certain platforms.
Yeah.
And there's a move.
That's where I think it's sort of an experiment. We can always. I think it sort of had an audience. I think the second episode is going to keep the core audience that liked what we did, and maybe expand further in terms of how we take more of a sitcom approach, more toward 2-minute style episode. It's a lot closer to the script. We just had we shot 26 pages of script in 3 days. I think that's the disclaimer on, for anything. I have very strong criticisms of it. I think there are things that could be better. I think there are things it does great, but the context of like how we did sort of like a 24-minute, 26-page script. It was 28. I had to scale it down because the director of photography told me, I think the quote was, he's like, what you're planning to do is bordering on the edge of insanity. I just want you to know that. This is 4 days before shooting. So we somehow pulled it off, and I think even doing that is an accomplishment. In terms of if we can do this in 3 days with no money and just the pool of talented people that are volunteering to work on it, and some people they're working, but they're working for half their rate or a quarter of their rate, and if we can do this with nothing, imagine that's really the idea. What can we do if you gave us a budget and time to shoot? And I basically need time. That was why doing something that's so heavy on improv, if you have the time to do it, I think it's where the best comedy comes from.